Back to another Straight to the Bar Gym Chat. This is Gym Chat number 265, and I am Josh Hewitt. Welcome back. I am back with Bud Jeffries. Been on the show before. Glad to have you back, Bud. Thanks for joining me again.
Yeah, man. Glad to be here.
So Bud Jeffries, if you aren't familiar with his work, he has a number of DVDs that he has on the market, ebooks. He's just created a new product, Maximum Functional Hypertrophy, I believe. Is that correct?
Maximum Functional Mass.
Maximum Functional Mass. That's correct. Then we'll put a link to that down below. I want to sort of touch on that a little bit tonight as well. We're going to be talking about what the hell is functional training, because there is a lot of different perspectives, and that term is thrown around here and there. It's some people look at it as standing on BOSU balls and wobbly boards, and to other people it has only to do with rehabilitative training. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that can mean to you, or what it should mean to you if you want to increase your functional ability in life and your strength overall. Before we do get into that, Bud, could you just give a little bit of your background and how you got into the strength game?
Yeah, man. I got in as a young guy. Started as a competitive powerlifter at 14 years old. Was playing American football and found a little gym that next door to my house, literally within a mile of my house, that happened to have a bunch of competitive powerlifters. And that sort of brought me into the rough education of a young guy training with a bunch of older dudes who were, drinking and swearing and lifting heavy and doing all the crazy stuff that I wasn't old enough to do yet. And but it was a huge education on strength, and so from there I went to competitive powerlifting, and I won a USPF team national championships, and later on won a WNPF World Raw Drug Free Championship, and I got into Strongman competition and Highland games, and I lost my mind for a while and did a little bit of no holds barred fighting, and all the other crazy stuff a guy can do that's fun and testosterone driven and whatever. And then spent the last several years working as a professional performing style strongman, and then doing anti-bullying shows in schools and that kind of thing. And then I also do a lot of, really a lot of informational products. I've been I had this wide background of strength and really wanted to give what I had been blessed to have to other people, because you can be so much stronger than you think you can be if you just have the knowledge on how to get there. So I spend a lot of time right now just creating stuff to help people learn how to be strong and how to get whatever they want in life, how to be bigger, be smaller, be more awesome, and be a sexual Tyrannosaurus Rex, like me and Jessica Tur. What can I say?
Exactly. Well, that's amazing, and that's great, because some people were able to help you when you first started out in the game and take you under their wing and show you what it's all about, and you're doing the same on a much larger scale now, and thankfully to the online world where you have connections with, we can do that now. So that's terrific, and you have been blessed, like you said, to have a wealth of experience in all manner of the strength game, whether it's combat arts, strongman, powerlifting, various types of hypertrophy training, conditioning. So definitely a wealth of knowledge, and I know we can't get into everything tonight, but look forward to chipping away at a couple of important topics that people can learn from. So let's get right into that, and I really appreciate you being here on this topic, because I've talked about it before, and there's definitely a lot of differing opinions and misunderstandings about what the hell functional training actually is. So you have, like we're talking about, a resource now that you've just sent me, and I appreciate that today. I'm going to definitely take some more time to look through that. There's a lot of information in there. Looks amazing so far from what I've seen. So maximum functional mass, and this is about not just getting bigger, but having usable strength, like usable muscle mass that you can apply to day-to-day life or your sport or your activity. So can you just give a brief synopsis of what your program or your ebook is about? You'll do a better job of that than I would.
Well, one of the things I would say is it's exactly what the title is about. But I guess we got to jump into what the term functional means, because the term functional is one of the most overused, overhammered, sells itself on the corner for $10 words that in the fitness world. Everybody in the world's got functional shoes and functional shoelaces and functional socks, and and then there's a functional for this and that or whatever. Let me tell you how I quantify the word, okay? because the only important definition really for my book is how I quantify it. Because what you know, I can only tell you what I'm teaching you, but it is important that you know the other people's stuff. So, as in usable in the real world. Okay, for me, that is the term functional. But it's functional for whatever you want it to be. You can only define your own functional state. I can't define it for you. I can maybe give you some ideas on what I think will help you get more functional in any possible area. But, you know, I can't make you into what you want to be. Only you can decide that for yourself. So, you know, functional is a big buzzword that people use to usually to sell crap.
Often.
You know, to sell, and usually it's to sell stuff that makes no difference in actual usable ability at all. Okay. I want to go the opposite way. I want to give you the ability to build as much mass as you want, but I want that mass to actually, every ounce of muscle or body weight you carry, to actually perform what it's supposed to be performing. So, and actually perform in many different arenas of the real world. To actually be as strong or stronger than you look. To not be, you know, I mean, now, and this is something I address in the book too. We, you know, if you come from the hardcore world, powerlifter, strongman, whoever, they tend to bag on bodybuilders. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you why they bag on them. They bag on them, first of all, for the oiled-up posing suits because, I mean, that's just an easy target. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can't, you know, I mean, that's shooting fish in a barrel. You can't say nothing, you know, come on. But reality is they also bag on them because usually they're a little bit, you know, they're not as lean, so sometimes there's a little bit of jealousy. However, from a realistic functional standpoint, they do bag on them because a lot of those guys, especially in the modern super heavy steroid era and all the other mass-gaining drug era, okay, just aren't strong. Now, most of your top-end guys are stronger than you think, and there is a little different way of looking at strong in comparison to a bodybuilder. So let me tell you what I mean. Okay, Ronnie Coleman was strong, period, for anybody, anywhere, everywhere, period. So there are those bodybuilders who legitimately are. And prior to the, okay, I would call us right now in the muscle mass perspective and even in the strength perspective, if you want to know the truth about what's really going on in bodybuilding, powerlifting, strongman, we're in the mega drug era.
Yeah.
Okay, we're in the you know, the 1950s is usually often called the golden era of bodybuilding, 1950s to 1960s, and then you stretch into the Arnold era, which comes into the late 60s, early 70s, and then up through the 80s. And then you got the 90s to now, and probably post to the 2000s, you have a mega drug era. The drugs have just gotten bigger. Therefore, you see people get bigger. And some of those guys are pretty strong, okay? But not strong comparatively when you consider, okay, Ronnie Coleman was a 300 pounds on stage, 300 plus on the off season with an 800-pound squat, and Ed Cohen was a 220 with a 1,000-pound squat. So comparatively, Ronnie is strong, but not the same kind of strong. And Ronnie is the absolute outlier top-end example versus the average bodybuilder who's not even close. So what I'm saying is they're larger than their strength really is. Versus a lot of powerlifters are actually stronger than they actually look. Okay, so there's the difference there in how you look versus how you are. But here's where we mess up in messing with bodybuilders on that, and I'll finish the point here. Okay. What kind of strength are we talking about? If we're talking about 1 rep max strength, and if that's your judgment of what functionality is, then yes, most bodybuilders are, you know, the big guys are still strong, don't get me wrong. They're still stronger than the average human by long shots. But they're not strong comparative to the other real strength athletes. However, if you jump into, let's do 10 sets of 10 and judge by who can do the most weight for 10 sets of 10 with a 60-second rest, now we've changed paradigms. And so let's extend that out. How do you define functionality? Do you define it by a 1 rep max? Do you define it by the biggest crazy object like a strongman you could lift? Do you define it by what you could do 20 reps with or 10 sets of 10? Do you define it by whether or not you can dunk a basketball or how many times you can snatch a kettlebell? There's just literally hundreds and hundreds of ways muscularly to define that. And what I wanted to give people is a way to build mass, but real actual mass. Okay, that actually is as strong as it looks. And if you want to be really big, okay, that's there. We'll get you really big. But if you just want to be a little bigger, or if you want to just really be, honest to God, as usable as possible. And I had a bunch of experiences in my life that taught me what usable mass was when you take it out of a gym. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I wanted to have with people. I want you to have that kind of ability where you're not, okay, yeah, you're cool, and it's awesome that you can bench, 315 for a bunch of reps, but if I put you on a grappling mat, you get the crap beat out of you by a 120-pound, girl, or or whatever, or anybody in the world can, outrun you to the mailbox, and even if there's a cheeseburger in the mailbox, they can really outrun you to get that. I want you to have
you can't help your buddy move a couch.
That's right. That's right. Which is terrible. I mean, but and truth is, most of us probably know somebody like that who, man, that guy's pretty big, and well, if you put him in the gym, he's pretty strong. But he wasn't better than my 35-year-old out-of-shape beer-drinking cousin to help move couches, and that kind of sucks. I don't want to be that. I want to be, now, don't take that as an open invitation. If possible in my lifetime, I have moved my last couch. I hate it. Okay, I'm good at it, but I hate it. So don't call me to move your couches. But
that's just a matter of preference, not ability.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, excellent. So that's pretty clear as far as the definition goes. So can you give a couple of examples now? Of course, there's so much. I mean, we're not going to go through every exercise that someone could apply, but are there a couple of principles that someone could start to consider when they're looking at maybe changing their program or including into their workout routine that might sort of accommodate for a more usable or more functional strength or mass, some size, some muscularity, some real meat that they can put on their body that they know is going to help them be useful in their day-to-day life? What are some basic considerations?
Okay, I'm going to say this first of all. In the second chapter of the book, I titled it "Your Personal Mass." Okay.
Right.
And I did that because there is no way for me to give you the advice that you want if you can't honestly answer a bunch of questions. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what I wanted to do is give people an idea, a real set of honest evaluation questions to go through to ask where you are in all these possible considerations for mass. Okay. So I'll give you in a moment. I'll give you just basic principles on how to get big no matter what. But it's not going to be the best for you if you don't answer the questions. So if you can't answer questions like, am I actually reasonably healthy? Okay? And you need to answer the question, do I really want to get bigger? Do I have a particular body part that needs to get bigger? In other words, are my legs out of balance with my upper body? Is one part out of balance with the other? Do I have a real legitimate strength or muscular imbalance, as in I'm a really powerful bench presser, but my upper back power sucks? Or am I out of whack in some other way? And so you got to answer the question first. How you legitimately perform? Okay. Now, when you answer that question, there's a logical pattern to ask. And here's what I'm going to say. The next thing to developing that logical pattern of really setting your training up to get what you want: intelligent dosing. Okay. That's probably my first thing. Now, people have mentioned all the time, there's a big thing right now, minimalist training, the minimum dose for what, the minimum effective dose is a big term. Okay.
Right.
I don't necessarily believe in that. And let me tell you what I mean. Strength is the underrated, underhammered, because people don't like to lift heavy. And especially in the athletic world, they like to say, oh, well, he's strong in the gym, not great on the field. Yeah, okay, maybe. Mm-hmm. But all other things, technique, sport ability given, strength is the underlying principle that will make the difference. Okay? Mm-hmm. If you and I are the same body weight, we have the same endurance, we have the same technical skill fighting, and you can deadlift 250 and I can deadlift 700, I will probably crush you.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? But here's the thing I mean by intelligent dosing. When you look at that in the real world, what people say is, well, I don't want to spend the extra time to get to the next level in my strength. As if to say that requires 15 hours of commitment a week to move that one lift up a few pounds. Okay? It doesn't. It doesn't if you have some real thought on the history of what's really effective in training. Now, it does if you listen to Flex Magazine, okay?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Because they'll tell you that to move your deadlift up, you need to do 87 sets.
Yeah, right.
Almost nobody in the real world, and that's even counting the guys who are pro-level lifters and heavily drugged up, does that kind of volume, okay? They just don't. Effective dosing is the first thing after you've decided, okay, so I want to actually get bigger. And to get bigger, I must A, get stronger, and then I must do a little bit more work, and I must eat differently. Those are three different special things. So you got to decide specifics on what you want. If I say I want to get bigger, but what you really are saying is I want to add 5 pounds of muscle, I actually want to cut some fat, and I want to add 50 pounds to my deadlift, well, that's much better questions. That's more specific questions.
Yeah.
So effective dosing is the first principle, man. And here's what I mean by that, okay? When you're looking at building true real-world functionality, okay, you're juggling about 9 different balls at one time, okay, versus a specialist who is holding one ball and has a few marbles in his pocket for the other physical qualities. So if you look at effective reality in training, okay, you got strength, you got size, you got multiple different types of strength to consider, you got endurance to consider, you got flexibility, mobility, agility. You have a lot of things in the physical realm that make the difference. For instance, if you want to talk, let's use the couch moving example, okay? You got a guy who's an 800-pound deadlifter, but he's so in pain from flexibility issues and so immobile that he sucks at moving couches, and he's not as good as a 150-pound guy who just does crap, who just moves boxes for a living. Why? It's not because his strength is lacking. It's because his flexibility, his mobility, and agility, and probably endurance are shot out. So when you talk about real-world ability there, you got to pick out which one. And when you're juggling all those things together, you can't use one thing as the only end-all of your training and neglect everything else and expect to get it. Okay? It just doesn't work that way. If a guy is lacking, if that specific example, he's dead in the water endurance-wise and he can't touch his toes. Well, more deadlifting ain't going to help him touch his toes better and get, the ability to walk to the mailbox without falling apart. You need to add intelligent amounts. But here's the thing. Even the best people in the world who are specialists at what they do, they overdevelop their one trait to the point there is no adaptive ability left to build other traits. But you don't have to. Even the best people in the world get most of their results from only 20% of their training. Okay? And when you take the drug issue out, okay, you really sort of set up a situation where maybe you're better off, maybe the effective dose is actually the best dose when you add recovery in. So I grew up as a powerlifter in sort of the old style periodization setup, okay? And we rarely at that time ever did more than 2 truly brutal heavy sets of a particular exercise, okay? That's just the kind of thing I came from, and it afforded me all this recovery ability to do with this other stuff. And here's what I'm saying you can't prove. You can't prove that a massive dose, 20 heavy sets, is going to get you stronger faster than 2 properly done, highly intense sets. So pick the smart dose and err on the side of smaller, intense dose versus larger just for the sake of volume dose. That's the first principle.
Okay. Now, what about, I think you sort of touched on it in there as well, that you need the right dosing, but that a little bit higher volume of work needs to be done for the hypertrophy component. Would you agree with that? Whereas short, intense training is definitely more favorable to building strength, which obviously ties into mass. What sort of volume is needed, or changes in volume is needed specifically for getting stronger, or for building muscle mass?
Well, see, I don't think you can agree. Okay, let me give you a couple of examples of this. Okay, Ed Cohen and Mark Chalet. Do you know who Mark Chalet is?
No, obviously I know Ed Cohen, but not Mark Chalet, no.
Yeah. Okay, Mark Chalet is one of the guys who came from sort of that same time period in the early days of Ed Cohen and came around that same thing. Mark Chalet is one of the first several guys to squat in the 1,000-pound range and had one of the best all-time totals. And he's just a monster, dude. He's just a big, strong guy with like about a 1,000-pound squat and like almost 900-pound deadlift, and just was a monster. Okay. He came from a period, and if you look at him, and I mentioned Ed for that same reason, okay? You're talking about guys who bulked up, got massively big, got hugely strong on very, very low volumes. I don't think you can prove that size is volume related, but I do think it can help, okay?
Okay.
So now here's my take on the volume. I always do volume, okay, when it overlaps with another physical component, okay? So I don't really believe when you're talking about building muscle that is stronger than it actually looks and usable in the real world, well, okay, I want that volume to not just give me payoff for getting bigger, okay? Because I've kind of decided that if you, let me give you examples like this. If you squat 500 pounds for 5 sets of 5, or 600 pounds for 1 set of 5, you're probably going to be about the same size leg-wise or whole body-wise. You see what I mean?
Okay.
I prefer you err on the side of heavier and lower volume because you have the recovery and intensity to get there and gain the size out of the pure muscle, out of the pure weight you use. But I got no problem with adding some other things as long as they fit in with the other types of strength and with the other types of possible endurance you can build. So that brings me to another principle that I like to use. I always call it fast volume. Okay? So here's what I mean. I don't do volume just for the sake of volume. In other words, I don't keep stacking up sets with long rest periods between them, or most of the time. Now, if I'm working toward a new max, or if I'm and it just takes me a bunch of sets to get there, or maybe I've decided as an offhanded, not a regular thing I do challenge, I want to see if I can lift this particular weight this many times. That's different. But on a regular basis, if I add a volume thing, and I keep some volume in, I'm not saying that, I do it in such a way that it's also increasing my endurance or allowing me to work on other physical capacities at the same time. So I do that by one of two ways. I either go super fast, okay, and when I found that you got in super good shape and you got really great endurance, you can lift heavy very fast to the point that you're taxing both muscular and volume and endurance at the same time. Okay, so you're building both capacities at the same time. Or I often do it in a complex set of some sort. Okay, so I might do a heavy lift, maybe for a bunch of reps or whatever, and then I don't want to rest between sets at all. Okay, so my immediate thing I'll go directly to something to keep my heart rate up while the local muscle recovers, and then working some other athletic ability. So maybe I'll do belt squats, and then in between I'll do somersaults or tumbling or something along that line or whatever, so that I'm working agility and flexibility at the same time I'm working volume and strength. Does that make sense? I think
that makes sense. And it's also a more efficient way of fitting all the training components in if you're doing some conditioning work with the higher volume stuff. And you are training different aspects. Because that's what I was thinking is how can we address so many different components of strength development and ability without spending hours and hours. But that explains sort of one way of accomplishing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think well, number one, I also think if you have to take frequency into account there. Okay, frequency and total volume. So if you're getting your strength work, and it's not a lot of volume to begin with, well, you've got that kind of covered, so that doesn't take a lot of time. Okay, unless I'm doing a specific endurance workout that's going to last more than this period of time, I rarely ever train for more than an hour. I just don't think it's useful for you or necessary. And that, okay, but you do that by what we just talked about. Cut the rest periods down over a period of time. Now, to do that, okay, you got to get in good shape to begin with. You got to get in good cardiovascular shape to begin with. Like a lot of powerlifters, okay, they'll take huge rests between set and their workout will last 3 hours, okay? But let's be flat honest, okay? I came from that time period. I've been in that position before, and they'll talk about, well, you need full recovery for this energy system and that energy system, and yeah, you do. But the truth is they're just out of shape. No offense to my boys. Yeah. This is my crew, okay? But let's just tell the truth. Now, I will say this, okay? The average person cannot identify with the amount of physical strain it takes to squat 900 pounds for multiple sets, okay? So if a guy who squats 900 pounds for multiple sets takes 5 to 10 minutes or 10 minutes between sets, I'm going to say he's reasonably justified most of the time.
Yeah.
But the reality is you can get so much stronger, so much faster, and you can get so much more work done. And for a lot of us, being lean is a problem. So if you jack up the volume and get another muscular ability of some sort, flexibility, mobility, agility, endurance, balance, whatever you want to train, and move it in a complex set and just keep going without, with as little rest as possible, you've got your cardio taken care of, you've got your muscular volume and your strength work being taken care of, and you're working some other physical ability. So we're killing a lot of birds with one stone, all in one little neat package that doesn't keep you in the gym for 19 hours.
Absolutely. No, that makes sense. Now, some people would look at, I can definitely see, and most people should recognize, how strength and hypertrophy or building mass are related. But a lot of people look at mobility, functionality, your ability to take on different daily tasks as being limited the bigger you get. And I think that's sort of been termed as the stereotype of being muscle bound.
Right.
What are your opinions on that? When if your goal is to get you just want to be like a beast like yourself, for example. Let's say we want to be 300 pounds plus, as big as we can possibly get and very strong as well. But we want to have that mobility, flexibility, and usable strength for our day-to-day activities. What would your response be to those people say, well, I can't get that big, I'll become muscle bound, it'll limit my, I'll become stiff and I'll walk like a mummy?
Okay. Well, you're only limited by your own perceptions, okay? Just because you see a lot of guys who are big, who walk like mummies, doesn't mean you have to be that way, okay? Here's what you're seeing with that. First of all, the muscle-bound term is literally baloney, okay? There's like 1 or maybe 3 total in all of sport situations where you literally are carrying too much lean muscle to be flexible enough to do a thing. What you're seeing is guys who just don't do any flexibility work, okay? Now, and people say this as if to say being smaller is automatically going to make you more flexible or more mobile or more enduring, and it is not. Because, okay, if you go, say you go to a family reunion and you just randomly pick an assortment of a dozen male cousins, and not everybody's big, I bet everybody ain't going to have brilliant ballerina-like flexibility or mobility just because they don't lift weights or whatever, and I bet most of them aren't going to have phenomenal endurance just because they're 135 pounds. You see what I mean? You don't get anything you don't train for. So the reality is, the whole myth of that whole thing is people who just didn't train for the traits that you're testing them in. And again, we bring back the functionality point there, okay? If you're a powerlifter and you don't care, now this is dumb, okay? And you don't care about mobility at all. You just want to be strong. And now here's the thing about that. This is why it's dumb. You can have all the mobility you want and keep yourself out of pain and live a longer, healthier, better life, but you don't have to do it. Okay?
Right.
Those qualities are helped by each other, but they are not 100% dependent on each other. And so if all you care about is strength, so what you're seeing when you see guys who look immobile in that way, you're seeing guys that just don't do the work. But there is literally no physical reason why you can't be as flexible as you want to be, as mobile, as agile as you want to be, as enduring as you want to be, at any size you want to be. Now, there might be one minor exception here, okay? Certain types of like running, but some guys are blowing this out of the water these days, okay? Guys like Alex Vieta and all those guys are, guys who are 240 pounds, running 4.5-minute miles and 50-mile ultras and squatting 700 pounds. You're talking about crazy stuff. It's totally doable. The question is, are you willing to actually do the work? The reality is, most people just aren't. The things that they think you can't have, they're just not doing the work to get. Okay? Now, on the flip side, in the functional world, okay, they limit people from ever getting strong because all they ever do is correctives. All they ever do is mobility, flexibility, and they think that if you don't have the mobility of an 11-year-old Mongolian contortionist, you're physically out of whack and you're not ready to do any squats or deadlifts. That's baloney on both sides, okay? You're ready to do squats and deadlifts if you can stand up as a human being, okay? You might need to do some things to correct some imbalances. You might need to undo some stuff. You might not be mobile. But that goes to the guy who's 300 pounds and the guy that's 110 pounds. Everybody needs to address these topics, period. Okay, and I put these things together because I want to be my living example of this whole thing, okay? Everything I tell you in a book or whatever, I'm the living guinea pig. I don't tell you anything I didn't do and I didn't try, or subject some other psycho to, okay? Somebody who was willing and dumb enough to volunteer. Okay.
Someone as crazy as yourself.
Yeah, which is rare these days. So I don't. But here's what I mean. Okay, I'm 290 plus pounds right this minute. All right. At this moment, or within the last 2 months, I've done a 220-pound one-arm press, an 800-pound squat. Today I jumped onto a 24-inch box with 150 pounds of extra load. I can do a full split, a somersault, handstand push-ups. I can touch my toe. I can go further than touching my toes and put my palms flat on the floor. I can snatch a 35-pound kettlebell for about 350 reps in 10 minutes. You can. Yep. There's no reason you can't do this, and it's not like, okay, well, I'm just an outlier of genetic freakness. That's not the deal. The deal is I just honestly decide to give a real effort to each part of the physical athletic equation, and most people don't. They just totally neglect all the others. Well, if you gave the same amount of effort you gave to getting flexible as you did doing squats, or if you're already super flexible, if you gave the same amount of effort you got to whatever your sport or whatever your deal that made you that kind of flexible, and then gave that same amount of effort to building a huge squat or deadlift, you're going to get there. And the question is just how much of each one, how do I season the recipe to make it my own, and am I doing the real work? That's the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And if someone's doing that mobility, flexibility work, I mean, and creating stability in their joints that allows for more freedom of range of motion, I would argue that their risk of injury may be a little lower. That way, that can improve their performance over the long run as well. Because one of the big things that sets people back from making progress is the little injuries and aches and pains that hold us back along the way. So I don't think they necessarily have to be giving up a little bit of one for another. They can definitely complement one another along one's journey of progress in the strength game. So
absolutely, it is only at the absolute top 1% of the world-class level in performance in any one of those things that you're actually giving up to. You know what I'm saying? In other words, if you're literally at the point where you're within 1 pound of breaking the world record for squats, then I'll give you that maybe you can slack off on the mobility a little bit until you break the record or whatever. But you're talking the rest of the world. We see this because we're told by everybody writing articles and all this sciencey stuff. You know, and I say sciencey with quotes, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. That if you add this to if you do steady state cardio, you'll get weak. Your testosterone will blow apart. You'll die. Your grandmother will get sick. I mean, all this crazy stuff that they say, and reality is, it only applies in like certain very top-end level situations where you're, and even if it does, okay, yeah, and okay, so even if it, let me give you this. Where's the trade-off? If you can squat 600 by squatting, once every 7 to 10 days for 2 sets, and you can keep that up for 20 years because the volume is doable, and you have the time and effort and flexibility to work your endurance, to work your other stuff, to keep everything in line, to keep yourself pain-free. Or you can squat 7 times a week, stop all your cardio and no mobility, and squat 625. Well, and then have a 3-year-long career that falls apart because you have neglected every other part of that. Well, where's the payoff? You know what I'm saying? Even if it is less, and I don't believe you can prove it's less. Okay, I really don't, honest to God, believe you can prove it. Even if you're talking about like 1% difference. So if your bicep is 20.8 inches and the other guy's bicep is 20.9 inches, but you outlive him by 30 years and you can touch your toes and and carry a couch and your wife doesn't hate you because you're too weak to do anything else around the house, I'd say that 0.1 of an inch on the bicep is a worthy trade-off considering the life you could have.
Yeah, exactly. And the showboating you can do by all the cool things you can throw up some handstands and actually do some real mobility work. It's just to be able to lift a bar in the gym. That's great if that's what your sport is or you're competing in. But it's definitely nice to be able to actually move in other ways and in other activities in your life. And gives you that much more freedom to participate in a number of different activities as well. Is there anything else? I think we shared a couple of good examples. We gave some fundamental principles that people can sort of look at applying in a more general sense to their own programs. And we've explained it well. How you define functional is related to having that mass that you can actually use. Anything else that you think would be good for those who are listening to consider around this topic? Or any resources that you can suggest?
Well, let's talk about a couple things to consider, and then we can talk about maybe some resources. Okay. Let's talk about maybe some types of strength that are good to test yourself with. Okay.
Okay.
So
Cool.
we're talking about we've made the barbell connection a lot here, and I'm gonna in the book I concentrate on barbells because I know barbells, dumbbells, whatever, something in that normal lifting, well, normal-ish lifting range. Okay, because I know that most people don't necessarily have access to all the strongman stuff or other stuff. But I do think if you limit yourself only to barbells, you're never going to have a real gauge of how functional you are in the real world. Because as much as you are, it's difficult to really see how you're going to move a couch if you don't move a couch. Or how you and the couch is a great acronym really just for anything that's awkward to lift.
An odd object.
Okay. An odd object of some sort, yeah. So I really believe that you ought to do. You don't have complete training of in any shape or form if you're not doing some kind of odd object at least once in a while. Because reality is you're just not stressing the body in a way that you would really use it in the real world. You're just not. The things you pick up in the real world are not going to be balanced. They're not going to have easy grips. They're not going to have fun or friendly centers of gravity. They're not going to move smoothly with nice turning Olympic handles or what. It's not going to happen that way. They're going to be awkward. They're going to be odd. They're going to pull you in different positions. They're going to require you to get exceptionally low to lift them or to create a huge amount of force from an awkward position. So I think that's if you really want to know how good your strength is and how it's going to fall out in the rest of the world, you can't just take what you're doing in the gym. You got to get out and do something. Like for me, the thing I recommended in the book is, and I recommended it because it's what I've been into lately, but it's one of my all-time favorites, and it's also probably the cheapest way to get into lifting odd objects is just the stones. And, if you can find a rock, go pick it up. Okay, and exactly. That's what I mean. It's just literally cheap. Okay. But here's what I mean. And if you can pick up a big, decent rock, pick it up maybe a couple different ways, maybe pick up a decent one, press it overhead, put one on the shoulder, pick one up to the chest, and maybe you can walk around a little bit with something pretty heavy, you will be training your functionality, and that functionality will then transfer into bigger gym lifts, and so that's more muscle, and you'll get an idea of how your gym lifts and how the other stuff you're doing is actually going to pay off in the real world. I think you got to get a standard of each kind of strength. You know what I'm saying? Like I know about what I want to be at in the gym, lifting weights with a barbell or dumbbell or whatever. I've got some standards that I adhere myself to. I know that's strong for me. And then I've got a strong for me standard with other stuff. And so if I pick this up and it's way harder than it usually is, well, maybe I'm out of practice with it, or maybe I'm done. I know maybe that's another thing I need to work on to really keep every standard there available. I think you're just not going to be as strong without objects. And I think one of the things people will I think they'll find it interesting. They might think I'm a total nutcase. From the book I had a type of strength in there I think you should test yourself with called 3D strength. Okay. That's not necessarily really the right scientific way to say it, but it's a good way for people to visualize. What I mean is it's strength that doesn't work in a regular linear pattern. Okay. Mm-hmm. A barbell is usually lifted straight up and down, or almost dead straight up and down. Maybe if you look at a slight curve in the pattern, but you're talking about essentially a straight up and down lift. Okay. Well, the real world don't give you even footing. It don't give you balanced footing. It don't give you balanced grips. It doesn't require you to just pick things straight up. It requires you to pick them up and move them in odd directions. And I think there's some lifts that can be done sort of like with dumbbell type stuff a lot, or I'd like to use plates and stuff for that kind of thing, by setting up a thought process of, let's make this the total opposite of what I normally do. But in doing that, you talked about joint stability earlier. Every one of these things that you train that way is going to help move your joint stability, your ability, your balance, and all that stuff forward, and then reciprocally that will pay off for bigger gains later on for lifting. I think that's a unique type of strength that we really don't do, and I think people ought to think about that. You know what I'm saying? That's a real great one. And then another thing I think go ahead.
Ties very closely to real world or odd objects training as well.
I usually use a more, sometimes I use an odd object for those things, but most of our odd object lifting is still relatively linear. It's just pick it up and carry it or that kind of thing. So in that, the object itself is imbalanced. All right.
Mm-hmm.
With this, I want to take an object, and it can be balanced or unbalanced. Doesn't make a difference. What I want to do is take the object itself and move the pattern to imbalance. Does that make sense? Move the motion I lifted in to an imbalanced motion. Okay. In other words, if most of the time I'm going to press straight up and down. But how often do you press straight forward in a standing position and have to hold, or press in an angle, or press in a different type of a shape where you have to move? You see what I mean? There's a whole nother think about this. Most of the lifting we do is straight up and down. But you should be able to apply force in any direction you can stretch your arms and touch. So that creates a giant 360-degree bubble around your body, forward to back, straight overhead to down. Well, so I'm
your strength
strong.
hula hoop.
Yeah. So I'm gigantically strong in picking stuff straight up, but I'm horribly strong out at the end of the bubble. See what I mean? I'm horribly see what I mean? There's a whole nother range that your joints can move in that you might have to apply force. I think that's another thing that we've just neglected. We haven't done. Now, here's where the functionality thing comes in. Some of those guys actually try to do some of that stuff, but usually it's so contrived that it's like it contrives to the point of ridiculousness. Okay, like I can make the strongest guy on the planet look stupid if I stick him on a surface that nobody, even with the best balance in the world, can stand on, like a Bosu, not a Bosu, but a one of them blow up. I forget what you call them. It's a giant beach ball.
Yeah, or a whoopee cushion or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and hand them 5-pound dumbbells. Well, you can make anybody look ridiculous there. Okay, that's not what I mean. But I'm talking about, let's give some real reality in the world situations. If you're climbing a mountain with your buddy or with your kid, and your kid falls and breaks their leg, and you got to pick him up and walk around with him. Well, you can't just pick him up in a straight line. You got to be able to pick him up and move him either up or down the mountain. So now you got footing that's totally unlevel. Now you've got a position you've got to hold or carry something that's totally different or unique. Or you've got that maybe they're above you and you've got to hand them something straight out in front of you. See what I mean? There's a whole nother type of muscular ability that we don't even scratch the surface of most of the time. And it doesn't have to be a huge part of the training, but for me, that's the kind of stuff I throw in on days when I want to work on other stuff, or if I would find a way to do a unique exercise that's already targeting a muscle, and so I can get a lot of stuff done at one time. Like, I'll give you an example. I made a DVD on this a year or so ago, and I did a exercise I call windsurfers. Okay? And this is going to sound silly, and if you do it in Planet Fitness, you will definitely get kicked out. You might get kicked out of a regular gym too for doing this, okay? But you just kind of got to bear with me, okay? So what I did was either a clean and press with a dumbbell or a lateral with a dumbbell. So I'm actually working the shoulder and tricep muscles, that kind of thing. And here's what I did. I took my power rack. I set the bottom bar on one at about 2 foot off the ground and the top bar about 6 or 7 foot off the ground. I stood up onto the bottom bar, so both feet are standing on a reasonably, not deadly unstable, but a reasonably unstable surface. I stood up and grabbed the top bar, so I'm supporting with one hand, and then I lean my body back and pick up a dumbbell, and then I either do clean and presses with that dumbbell or do laterals with that dumbbell. And it's sort of, the reason I named it windsurfers is if you ever watch somebody windsurf, that's kind of the body position that they're in. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm actually doing real muscular work with heavy weight. I'm just doing it in a way that's totally out of the norm for normal people to do, because I want to have strength. I want to have that strength not in perfect positions. I want to have the same strength I have when I'm locked and stable in a perfect position, and I want to have that same ability, not have a massive drop off when I'm in imperfect, unstable positions. But let's be real and make it a real world. Let's not, I'm not gonna, I'm not putting on ballet shoes to do it. Don't get, see what I mean? That just gives kind of an example. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's great. Yeah. You're not going to necessarily wrap yourself in bands pulling in different directions and then stand on a Bosu ball, right? So, but you can incorporate real exercises into something with uneven footing or offset stance or weight slightly unbalanced to one side. Yeah. Right. Awesome. There's a way to make it a legitimate strength exercise versus a way to, you can contrive it to the point that it's ridiculous. So that's not what we're trying to talk about. We're trying to talk about, let's give something where we can still really apply strength but let's not make it so, let's mix things up and give it a little different challenge. And anyway, and then the other thing you asked about that in relation to that, I think really ought to think about it in functionality is food. That's going to be
sorry?
in regard to mass as well.
Oh, your nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be straight honest. You can't get bigger without food. It just doesn't work that way. You can't, it doesn't happen. You don't.
Absolutely.
There has to be. But I think the thing I wanted to do in the book, in the nutrition section or whatever. And okay, I'm not like a nutritionist. I didn't give that kind of specific recommendations. I just told people what I do. But what I wanted to try to give was a perspective on realism in nutrition, and realism and functionality in living a real life. Okay, so let me kind of give my idea on that. You will not get bigger unless you eat more. Okay, if you want to get bigger and stay reasonably lean, you need to concentrate heavily on protein and get some decent fats and probably some decent carbs depending on your individual thing. Might be higher, might be lower depending on what you're going to do. Okay, What I don't believe in is the 8-meal-a-day schedule. Okay,
right.
Now I'm not knocking anybody who successfully does it. I just think let's talk about reality of life. Okay, how many people can live a real life and carry around a 75-pound Tupperware set of containers every day, all the time, and stop every hour or 2 hours to eat. And here's what I mean by the other thing. You look at that, okay? Our ancestors got big and strong. Now I'm not going to give you the paleo example of that, where they say everybody had 1% body fat and only ate berries and meat, and and that the whole world was a super athlete. That ain't true. That's bull. They can say what they want about that. That you cannot. That's not a plausible scientific fact. Okay. Here's what I mean though. Okay. You look at athletes okay, there were some men who lived in the turn of the century and prior to that who were as strong and as big and as muscular as just about anybody on this planet right now, pretty much, especially when you equalize for the drug equation. You don't find a single human who ate the way we do, the way we push on bodybuilders and stuff today. So I think you can achieve it with some reality in what you're doing, okay? And I've been through those phases, with the get huge phase where you can eat everything and eat, I've been kicked out of my fair share of restaurants for that prior to my coming to some sanity on that point, okay? But here's what I mean. You do have to eat bigger. You don't necessarily have to go nuts, but there's a balance there, okay? Everybody's going to have unique abilities and unique points there. A kid I trained with, I trained this kid for 2 years. He went from 3 years. He went from 148 pounds to 190 pounds in 2.5 years. Okay? Wow. Now, at the time I was training him, I was between 365 and 385, and this little 150-pound kid could out-eat me. It was horrible.
Really?
It was scary. It was terrifying. I don't know how he didn't. I don't know how his insides didn't explode. I promise he had like 3 stomachs. It's weird. So here's what I mean. Big food is going to be a very individual thing. Okay?
Yeah.
If you want to get really big, I don't know anybody who's really big who doesn't eat some significant food. Okay? But you don't necessarily have to, believe all the hype about, supposedly one time Bill Kazmaier, this is a huge legendary story from that thing. Supposedly one time Bill Kazmaier ate 50 pieces of chicken and drank a gallon of milk in one sitting. You see what I mean? Yeah. Now, I've seen guys eat 50 chicken wings, okay, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, like supposedly in the story, it was pieces of chicken. That's like 19 chickens.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? There's a balance there.
Over a couple of days.
Yeah. So
it's one long sitting.
And here's my thing on functionality with that, okay? So what goes to all that, if you're used to living that way and the only way your workouts are fueled and strong is if you do eight times a day, well, what happens if you suddenly can't eat 8 times a day? Are you creating an artificial environment that is artificially supporting muscle that's not there because the work you're doing in the gym isn't actually bringing the muscle, it's the food versus, you see what I mean? There's got to be a balance there between, yes, I do have to eat extra food, but no, I don't necessarily have to eat like 7 elephants or whatever because, and I think it's just, let's get some reality into the real world and not be swayed by every time somebody says, I eat no carbs, I eat more carbs, I eat less carbs, you can only digest so much protein. Yeah, just eat and eat some things, some things you enjoy, eat some real food, and okay, now this might not make you happy, but like I rarely take any kind of supplement, and when I do, it's usually an herbal of some sort. I think most people really, really, really don't need or even digest well most protein supplements. You might get a few. If it helps you, that's awesome. I just think there's a lot to be said for let's eat some real food and get it done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think getting most of your nutrition from real food, and I'm a supplement junkie. I love supplementing, but I totally would agree that they do nothing if you don't have your real food, your nutrition down first.
That's it right there. That's it, Josh, and that's what I really say to people, because I got no problem with supplements or people using them or that kind of thing or what. That's awesome, but most people who are jumping hugely into the supplement thing don't have the basic thing first. You know what I'm saying? That's like saying I can't. That's like saying I can't ride a bicycle, but I want to drive a NASCAR. You know what I'm saying? If you're not doing the basic thing first, the supplements just ain't going to help. They ain't going to do anything if you're not going to eat the real food too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did also agree with I did an article recently on nutrient timing. Is it really necessary? And I guess it was Alan Aragon and Brad Schoenfeld, I guess, did a meta-analysis of some research which basically suggested that it's not necessary to, first of all, eat multiple times a day in order to prevent, muscle wasting or stop yourself from going catabolic. And you don't have to necessarily plan your nutrient intake around your workout so strictly, which is something I always thought, per-workout nutrition is very important. I don't think it was suggesting that it doesn't matter at all, but that it can be much more relaxed around when you eat and how you eat. If you're eating 3 meals, maybe 3 meals and a snack 4 times a day, you're probably going to be covering your bases as far as nutrient needs for the day. If you want to gain some weight, you probably got to eat a little bit more if you're not gaining weight. If you're trying to lose some weight, maybe eat a little less. Make sure your protein's high. It's not really rocket science. I mean, there are things to tweak but so many people don't have those basics down, and they're looking for the little magic pills and the magic formulas of what quality of high glycemic versus low glycemic and what proteins they're eating, but they don't have those basics down.
And and here's the thing, okay? That's why I talk about it's so important to have some history and some knowledge about what's going on with the rest of the real world and have some things about what's going on, because I'll give you multiple examples of each. For everybody you talk about who does things one way, there's an example of somebody else who does things almost exactly the opposite way and still gets results. This one's probably not very well known outside the old-time strongman community and may not be well known there, but everybody today bags on sugar, and I don't believe sugar is really great for you, okay? But Joe Bonamo, you ever heard the name Joe Bonamo?
I've heard the name.
Okay, Joe Bonamo was
not familiar with him.
Bonamo was an old-time strongman. He had a couple of books about training and bodybuilding and that kind of thing. He won some contests and that kind of thing. And then he transferred over and became a stuntman, and he was a stuntman for a huge amount of the early silent movie type stuff.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, Bonamo grew up. His parents owned a candy factory, and he had this massive sweet tooth for sugar. Okay, and he said, I don't go crazy, but I still eat sugar, I still eat candy, it's not that kind of a thing. Dude was ripped. Dude was that thing that Van Damme did with the splits on the cars? Yeah, he was doing that back in the 30s and stuff, along with picking the back end of the car up. You see what I mean? Wow. Everybody who busts on one side or the other, well, okay, for everybody who says you better eat your peri-workout nutrition within 35 seconds after finishing your workout, I can tell you guys who won't eat for 3 hours after their workout. We really so much overcomplicated. As long as you're getting enough food in and doing the basic work, you'll get the results. Question is, and this is something that really is a big thing. Everybody talks about, they're talking about all these things as if they are the key. No, the key is the basics. You want to know why the best people in the world are the best at it? They do the basics. You know why the best bodybuilders are the biggest? They eat basic food all the time. They never deviate. You want to know why the strongest strongmen are the best at what they do? They never deviate. They're the best in the world at the basic lifts, at the technical ability of those basic lifts, they practice them for longer periods of time in their life, they never deviate from the basics. And that goes for the fastest people, the most flexible, the most enduring, the most mobile, the most biggest, the leanest, whatever. Thing is, we think we're getting better by doing this one little tweak percent. Reality is, we're 99.999% of us haven't even got the basics ready. And even when you do got the basics ready, you're still awesome. Okay. You know what the first exercise I learned in the gym was? Squat. You know what I still work on every freaking week and constantly strive to make the form perfect? And this is 26 years later. The squat. You never outgrow the basics of food, of lifting, of flexibility. Every bit of that is just pure basics. The question is, are you really doing it?
Yeah, I remember listening to a seminar, I think it was even a business-related seminar, and he was saying that if you want to become a master, you have to become a master of the basics. Everyone's looking for that secret formula, and they're like, no, well, first you have to work on this. Yeah, I got that. That's basic. What's the secret? What's the higher level thing? And the guru kept telling them, no, you keep saying, yeah, I got it for the basics, but you ain't got it because you're not doing it. Do the basics, make the main thing the main thing. What is that saying? So it's, if you want to be a master, become a master of the basics. So that's a powerful truth right there. Simple, but if people would just take that into account in their life and their training and their nutrition, huge things would happen right just from that.
Absolutely. Well, and that's really what my point. I think the thing that differentiates my work from other people is that I'm still telling you the basics, and anybody who's not telling you the basics is lying to you. Okay. But what I've done is given you the basics at the right amount in a way that they all work together. That's what I'm trying to do. Because there's very little that I do that I consider outside of the basics as far as complication of technique. It's just I just do a lot of different things on a basic level very well, and I've figured out how to make them not interfere with each other. That's the secret to the whole thing.
That's the big thing of it. Listen, before we wrap it up, can you give what's the link if people want to find more about this program? Where can they check out the Maximum Functional Mass program?
Well, if you go straight to my website, strongerman.com, okay, www.strongerman.com, and if you just search www.strongerman.com maximum functional mass, that should take you right to the page. But if you go straight to the front page of the website, it's right there. Okay, and you can't miss it. Cool. And then also, because this is Thanksgiving week, we're doing this. All right, we got the whole thing on Black Friday. Like, we started our Black Friday sale today, and so you can buy it for next to nothing. And even I've got 2 DVD downloads that come with it that you can get now with it for like the whole package is way cheap.
Perfect, awesome. I'm going to put a link to. I'll search that myself. I'm going to put a link to that right down below in the description section of this video right now. And for those of you who are watching this now, take advantage of that discount and grab it to get the bonuses on there too, for sure. I'm going to make sure I share this right away so people can grab that before the weekend's up. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you, Bud, if they want to just find out more about you and get in touch with you and talk about your training, talk nutrition, etc.?
You know what? We have a pretty good sized presence on Facebook, and we're getting a decent sized one on Instagram. So either of those things, if you just go straight to Bud Jeffries or strongerman.com on Facebook or Instagram, those are great, easy to get to me about. And then you always email me straight through the website from strongerman.com. Those are the easiest ways to get to me. And then I'm still trying to, like I said, I think we talked about this before. I'm still trying to master the 8,000 forms of social media, but I'm on Twitter and everywhere else too. Yeah, and pretty easy to find.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll put a couple links down there below too. I know there's so much out there. I'm looking at just narrowing it down now to a couple myself. I'm going to choose which one. Listen, Bud, it's been great having you on the show again, as usual. Always a great chat, and I look forward to doing this again soon. Thanks a lot for jumping in. We can talk about setting this up again in the new year?
Yes, sir. As soon as you're ready, buddy, I'm ready.
Sounds good. Look forward to it. And to everyone else watching, we will have another gym chat coming up next week on Monday, and I will be sharing some little gym chat bites and excerpts of some older gym chats coming up over the next few weeks as well. So be sure to tune in and check those out. And until next time, stay strong.